I was lying in that hospital bed, tubes running out of my arms, when my phone rang at 9 o'clock that Thursday evening. My daughter Candace. 6 months of silence, and now this call. Her voice was bright, almost manic. She told me she was getting married tomorrow to someone named Derek. Congratulations were in order, she said. Then came the real reason. She had sold my house and my car, using power of attorney. Everything was done. Goodbye, Dad. I laughed, which confused her. She asked why I was laughing. Because she forgot one thing, I said. The house she sold was not actually mine to sell anymore. Not legally, anyway. I could hear the confusion in her voice through the phone speaker, that sharp intake of breath that told me she had no idea what I meant. Let me back up and tell you how I got here. My wife Gloria died 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer. It took her fast, just 4 months from diagnosis to the end. We had been married for 42 years. She was my everything, my partner, my best friend, the person who made sense of the world when nothing else did. When she passed, something in me died too. But something else woke up, something cautious and watchful. Candace was 36 when her mother died. She had been through a rough divorce 2 years before that, married to a man named Todd, who drained their joint accounts and left her with nothing but debt. Gloria and I helped her as much as we could, paid off about $12,000 of credit card bills, got her back on her feet. But Candace blamed us, somehow, for not doing more. She said we should have given her $50,000 to start over completely. We did not have $50,000 to spare. I was already retired from my job at the Postal Service, living on my pension and Social Security. Gloria had been a school teacher. We were comfortable but not wealthy. After Gloria died, Candace started making comments about her inheritance. She would visit me every few weeks, and the conversation always drifted toward money. How much was the house worth? What about my life insurance payout? Did I have a will? I told her these were not appropriate conversations while I was grieving. She said she was just trying to help me plan for the future. My friend Walter, who had been my attorney for 20 years, noticed the change in Candace during Gloria's funeral. He pulled me aside a few months later and suggested something I found heartbreaking. Protect your assets. He said it gently, but the message was clear. Your daughter is circling like a vulture. So 2 years ago, Walter helped me create an irrevocable family trust. We transferred the house into it, along with some other assets. The trust had 2 trustees, me and my nephew Patrick, my late brother's son. Patrick was 38, worked in construction, had a good head on his shoulders. Any major decision about the trust required both signatures. I told Candace about the trust in passing, but I do not think she understood what it meant, or maybe she did not want to understand. Now, lying in this hospital bed, 3 days after major heart surgery, I explained all this to her on the phone. My voice was weak, but my mind was clear. The house is in a trust, I said. You cannot sell it without Patrick's signature. Any sale you arranged is completely void. The silence on the other end stretched for 10 seconds. 15. 20. Then I heard paper rustling, frantic sounds, and her voice changed from confident to panicked. She was reading something, documents probably, and reality was sinking in. Then a man's voice came on the line. Derek, I assumed. His voice was smooth, like warm honey, the kind of voice that sold used cars or timeshares. He introduced himself as my future son-in-law and suggested we could all work this out like adults. Maybe we could split the proceeds of the house sale, he said. Everyone could walk away happy. I told him there would be no proceeds because there was no legal sale. The trust was ironclad. Walter had made sure of that. Derek's tone shifted. The honey disappeared, replaced by something cold. He mentioned that I was alone in the hospital, vulnerable, with no family nearby. He said accidents happened in hospitals all the time. Equipment malfunctioned. Medications got mixed up. His words were vague enough to maintain deniability, but the threat was crystal clear. My heart monitor started beeping faster. I could feel my pulse hammering in my chest, that fluttering irregular rhythm that the doctors had warned me about. A nurse rushed in, looked at the monitor, looked at me with concern. I ended the call, but my hands were shaking. The nurse adjusted my medication, asked if I was all right. I nodded, but I was not all right. This was not just about money anymore. Derek was dangerous. Whatever I had imagined about my daughter's poor judgment in men, this was worse. This was a genuine threat. I did not sleep that night. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. Every footstep outside my door could be Derek coming back to finish what he started. The nurses probably thought I was paranoid, but they did not understand. This man had threatened me, and he knew exactly where I was. Morning came slowly. I watched the sun rise through my hospital window, painting the sky pink and orange over the parking lot. At 6 o'clock, I heard my door open. I turned my head, expecting a nurse with breakfast. It was Derek. He stood there, in khaki pants and a blue button-down shirt, looking like someone's respectable son visiting his ailing father. He had a visitor badge clipped to his shirt. He must have told security he was family. The night shift would not have known any different. "Good morning, Ferdinand," he said, pulling a chair close to my bed. He sat down, crossed his legs casually. "We need to talk, just the two of us, man to man." My panic button was on the bed rail. I reached for it subtly, but Derek noticed. He smiled. "I would not bother with that," he said. "I unplugged it when I came in. The cord is behind your bed. By the time anyone responds, our conversation will be over." My chest felt tight. I forced myself to breathe slowly. "What do you want?" Derek leaned back in the chair, completely relaxed. "I want what's fair," he said. "I have done my research on you, Ferdinand. I know about your bank accounts at First National. I know about your retirement fund with the Postal Service. I know you got a $200,000 life insurance payout when Gloria died. Most of it is still sitting there, earning nothing in a savings account. That is not smart financial planning." "How do you know all that?" I asked, though I suspected the answer. "Your daughter gave me access to everything," Derek said. "Passwords, account numbers, social security number. She trusts me completely. Which is sweet, really. She is a very trusting person." The way he said it made my skin crawl. He was not just a con man. He was enjoying this. "Here is what is going to happen," Derek continued. "You are going to sign some paperwork giving Candace power of attorney over your finances and medical decisions. Real power of attorney this time, not the fake documents she thought she had. Then you are going to have your nephew Patrick sign over his trustee position to Candace as well. Once we control everything, you will receive a generous allowance to live comfortably for your remaining years. Everyone wins. And if I refuse?" Derek stood up, walked to my IV line. He touched it gently, traced the tube with his finger. "Like I said last night, accidents happen. You are 68 years old, just had major heart surgery. Your health is fragile. Anything could go wrong. The doctors would not suspect a thing." I was about to respond when the door opened again. My nephew Patrick walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafeteria. He stopped when he saw Derek, immediately sensing something wrong. Derek's demeanor changed instantly. He broke into a warm smile, extended his hand. "You must be Patrick. I have heard so much about you. I am Derek, Candace's fiancé. Just stopped by to check on my future father-in-law before the wedding today." Patrick shook his hand slowly, looking at me. I gave him a meaningful look, trying to communicate everything without words. Patrick was sharp. He picked up on it. "The wedding," Patrick said. "Right. Candace mentioned that. Congratulations." "Thank you," Derek said. "Well, I should go. Lots to prepare." He looked at me one more time, that cold smile playing at his lips. "We will talk more later, Ferdinand. Feel better." He left. Patrick immediately came to my bedside. "What was that about?" I told him everything. The phone call, the threats, the attempted sale of the house. Patrick's face went from concerned to angry to determined. He pulled out his phone, started making calls. First to his lawyer friend, then to the police. While he was on the phone with the police, my doctor came in. Dr. Hayes was a woman in her 50s, efficient and no nonsense. She had performed my surgery and been overseeing my recovery. She had some disturbing news. "Someone called the hospital administration yesterday," she said. "Claimed to be your daughter. Said you were mentally incompetent and should not be allowed to make medical decisions. They requested you be moved to psychiatric evaluation." I stared at her. "Did you do it?" "Of course not," Dr. Hayes said. "I have been treating you for 3 weeks. You are completely lucid. But the attempt was made. I wanted you to know. We are reviewing security protocols for your room now." Patrick finished his call and told me more bad news. He had received a call yesterday from a title company asking about the house sale. Someone had tried to use forged trust documents. Patrick had already reported it to the police. There was now an active fraud investigation. We thought this might scare Derek off. We were wrong. My phone rang. My bank. There had been unusual activity on my account overnight. Someone had tried to wire transfer my entire savings, $140,000, to an offshore account. The bank had flagged it as fraud and frozen the transfer, but the attempt had been made. Patrick called the police again, gave them this new information. The detective promised to send someone to the hospital to take my statement. Then my phone rang again. Candace. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She was at the courthouse where they were supposed to get married. Derek never showed up. She had been sitting there in her wedding dress for an hour. The clerk told her no marriage license had been filed. Derek had never submitted the paperwork. It was all fake. "Where are you?" she sobbed. "What is happening? Derek told me you were trying to ruin everything. He said you were sick and paranoid. But he is gone. He took my car. He emptied my checking account. I do not understand." I felt a confusing mix of anger and pity. My daughter had tried to steal from me, but she was also a victim of this man. "Come to the hospital," I said. "We need to talk." She arrived an hour later, still in her wedding dress. Mascara streaked down her face. Patrick and I sat her down and explained everything Derek had done. She listened in growing horror, realizing how completely she had been manipulated. The next few hours were a blur of police interviews, statements, and phone calls. The detective assigned to the case was a patient man named Bill Crawford, maybe 55 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had seen this kind of thing before. Derek's real name was Derek Paulson, Detective Crawford told us. He was wanted in 2 other states for elder fraud schemes. He targeted people through their family members, usually adult children who were estranged or desperate for money. He would romance the family member, gain their trust, get access to the elderly person's information, and then systematically drain their accounts. He had done this at least 6 times that they knew about. Candace sat in the corner of my hospital room, hugging herself, looking small and broken. "I should have known," she kept saying. "I should have seen it." "How did you meet him?" I asked. "Dating app," she said. 6 months ago. He seemed perfect. He said he was a financial consultant, worked from home, had his own investment portfolio. He took me to nice restaurants, sent me flowers, told me I was beautiful. He listened to me talk about Mom, about how much I missed her, about how hard everything had been. He was so understanding. "And he convinced you to go after my money," I said. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He said you were hoarding it, that you did not need that much money, that you were being selfish." He showed me articles about elder financial abuse, but in reverse, about old people who refused to help their adult children even when they could afford to. He made it sound like you were the bad guy. I know that sounds stupid now. I know I should have questioned it. But I was lonely and angry, and he made me feel like someone finally understood me. Patrick was pacing by the window. "So what happens now? Can we find him?" "We are looking," Detective Crawford said. "His car was registered to a rental company under a false name. His apartment is cleared out. He is probably already out of state, but we will keep trying." The detective left. Candace stayed. We sat in uncomfortable silence for a long time. Finally, I spoke. "You forged documents," I said. "You tried to steal my house. Even if Derek manipulated you, you made those choices." "I know," she whispered. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not even know how to forgive myself." Patrick's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. "You need to hear this," he said, putting it on speaker. It was a woman's voice, professional and clipped. "This is Bethany Morse, from Morse & Associates law firm. I am calling regarding the emergency guardianship petition filed on behalf of Candace Miller for her father, Ferdinand Miller. The hearing is scheduled for Monday at 9 o'clock at the county courthouse. Please confirm you received this notification." Patrick looked at me. "What guardianship petition?" I had no idea. Candace looked shocked too. "I did not file anything," she said. Patrick called back the number. Got Bethany Morse on the line. She explained that Candace had retained her 2 weeks ago to file for emergency guardianship of me, citing my recent heart surgery, my irrational accusations against my daughter, and possible signs of dementia. There were signed documents, notarized, with Candace's signature on them. Candace went white. "Derek," she said. "He had me sign a bunch of papers 2 weeks ago. He said they were for wedding planning, venue contracts, and things like that. I did not read them carefully. Oh God, what did I sign?" So even though Derek was gone, the legal machinery he had set in motion was still running. The guardianship hearing would happen. If the judge ruled in Candace's favor, she would have legal control over my medical and financial decisions, despite the fraud investigation. The judge might see it as a family dispute rather than criminal activity. Patrick immediately called his lawyer friend for a recommendation. He got us in touch with a woman named Judith Brennan, a guardianship attorney with an excellent reputation. She was expensive, $300 an hour, but Patrick insisted. "We cannot fight this without proper legal help," he said. That night, my stress levels triggered another episode. My heart went into arrhythmia. The alarms on my monitors brought nurses running. Dr. Hayes came in, assessed me, and made a decision. "We need to do another procedure," she said. "A cardiac ablation to correct the rhythm. We cannot wait. Your heart cannot take this stress." They wheeled me to surgery. I was sedated, drifting in and out of consciousness. In those foggy moments, I thought about Gloria. I remembered her in the hospital during her last days. She had been so weak, but she held my hand and made me promise something. "Never give up on Candace," she had said. "She is our daughter. She will make mistakes, but she is still ours. Promise me you will not give up on her." I had promised. I had wept and promised. But I never imagined it would come to this. I woke up hours later in recovery. Patrick was there, looking exhausted. "The procedure went well," he said. "Your heart rhythm is stable now. But you need to rest. No more stress." "How can I rest?" I asked. "The hearing is in 3 days. Judith is working on it," Patrick said. "She is building our case. We have the fraud investigation, the police reports, everything. You are going to be okay." But there was more news. While I was in surgery, the police had found Derek's apartment. He had cleared it out, but they found evidence he had been planning this for months. There were files on other victims, fake IDs, forged documents, and he had stolen money, about $37,000 total, from various accounts he had accessed through Candace. He was gone. Probably left the state, or even the country. Candace was sitting in the corner again, her head in her hands. She was facing potential criminal charges for her role in the fraud, even though she had been manipulated. The district attorney had not decided yet whether to prosecute her. Her life was in ruins. She had no job, no money, no apartment. She had given up her apartment lease in preparation for the wedding that never happened. I looked at her, this broken woman who used to be my little girl. I remembered teaching her to ride a bike in our driveway. I remembered her high school graduation, how proud Gloria and I were. I remembered her wedding to Todd, how beautiful she looked, how hopeful we all were. Where had that girl gone? When had everything gone so wrong? The 3 days before the hearing passed in a strange haze. I was discharged from the hospital against Dr. Hayes' advice. She wanted me to stay another week, but I refused. I needed to be present at that hearing, needed to defend myself. Patrick helped me to his truck, drove me home. Walking into my house after 3 weeks felt surreal. Everything was exactly as I had left it, but everything had changed. Judith Brennan came to the house that evening to prepare me. She was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed and direct. She did not sugarcoat anything. "This is going to be difficult," she said. "Bethany Morse is known for these cases. She wins about 70% of the time. She is very good at painting adult children as concerned and elderly parents as confused and in need of protection." "But I am not confused," I said. "I am completely aware of what happened." "I know that," Judith said. "But perception matters in court. You are 68 years old, recently widowed, just had major heart surgery. You have accused your only daughter of attempting to steal from you. To an outside observer, it could look like paranoia or cognitive decline, especially if Bethany presents it the right way. She had me do cognitive tests, memory exercises, had me recount details of my life to prove my mental clarity. She compiled medical records from Dr. Hayes. She organized all the police reports about Derek. She was thorough. I will give her that. But I could see the concern in her eyes. This was not a guaranteed win. Candace stayed at Patrick's house. She could not stay with me. It would look bad for the case. But she called me every day, apologizing, asking if there was anything she could do. I did not know what to say to her. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe she was a victim too, but another part of me was still angry, still hurt by her betrayal. The morning of the hearing, Patrick helped me get dressed in my best suit. I had lost weight since the surgery. The suit hung loose on me. I looked old and frail, which was not going to help my case. Patrick drove me to the courthouse, helped me navigate the steps with my walker. My legs were still weak. The courtroom was depressing, all wood paneling and fluorescent lights. Bethany Morse was already there with Candace. Bethany looked polished and professional in a navy suit. Candace looked miserable in a simple gray dress. She would not meet my eyes. The judge was a man named Harold Watkins, maybe 60 years old, with white hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He had a reputation for being fair but also for favoring family preservation. He believed in keeping families together when possible. Bethany presented her case first. She was good, I had to admit. She painted a picture of an elderly man, recently widowed, traumatized by his wife's death, increasingly paranoid and isolated. She referenced the trust I had created 2 years ago as evidence of my growing mistrust of family. She brought up the accusations I had made against Candace, framing them as delusions or exaggerations. Then she called a witness I had not expected, a psychologist named Dr. Martin Reynolds. He had never met me, but he had reviewed the case file that Bethany provided. Based on his review, he testified that I showed possible signs of cognitive decline, paranoia, social withdrawal, obsessive focus on financial matters, difficulty trusting others. He admitted these were not definitive diagnoses without a personal examination, but he said the pattern was concerning. Judith cross-examined him hard. "You have never spoken to my client, correct? Never examined him? Never reviewed his actual medical records from his physician?" Dr. Reynolds admitted all of this. Judith made him look like a hired gun, which he probably was. But the damage was done. The judge looked thoughtful, taking notes. Then Judith presented our case. She called Dr. Hayes, who testified to my complete mental clarity throughout my hospital stay. She presented the police reports about Derek, the fraud investigation, the evidence of a systematic con operation. She showed that I was not paranoid. I was the victim of an actual crime. But then Bethany called her surprise witness, Diane, my former sister-in-law, Gloria's older sister. I had not seen her in over a year. She was 62 now, still attractive, but with hard lines around her mouth. She took the stand and testified that I had been strange since Gloria died, that I pushed family away, that I became controlling about money, even refusing to help her when she needed it. Judith objected, but the judge allowed it. Diane continued. She said I had trust issues, that I accused people of trying to take advantage of me, that I was not the same man she had known for 40 years. During cross-examination, Judith asked Diane directly, "Did you ask Ferdinand for money last year?" Diane hesitated, then admitted yes. "How much?" $20,000. "And did he refuse?" "Yes." "Why did he refuse? Do you know?" Diane looked uncomfortable. "He said I had a gambling problem." "And do you have a gambling problem, Diane?" She did not answer, but her silence was answer enough. Judith had made her point. Diane was getting revenge for being denied money, but I could see the judge was troubled by the whole situation. Here was a family completely broken, everyone accusing everyone else. Then Candace took the stand. Bethany started questioning her, but Candace stopped her. "I need to tell the truth," Candace said. Her voice was shaking. She told the whole story, how she met Derek, how he manipulated her, how she forged documents and tried to sell the house. She admitted everything, took full responsibility. She said she did not want guardianship. She just wanted her father to be safe and to forgive her someday. Bethany looked furious. She tried to redirect, but Candace would not change her testimony. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, Judith told me it looked good. Candace's honesty had helped. But then Bethany approached us with one final argument. She planned to present bank records showing that I had transferred the house to the trust 2 years ago, right after Candace's divorce. Bethany would argue that I did this out of spite, to keep assets away from my daughter, proving I was vindictive and possibly incompetent in my decision-making. Back in the courtroom, Bethany made exactly that argument. She painted me as a man who cared more about money than family, who punished his daughter for needing help, who created legal structures specifically to exclude her. It was a clever argument because it had a grain of truth. I had protected my assets from Candace. The reason was different than what Bethany claimed, but the action was the same. The judge looked at me. "Mr. Miller," he said, "why did you create that trust?" I answered honestly. "My wife was dying, Your Honor. Candace was going through a difficult time and making comments about her inheritance while her mother was still alive. It broke my heart, but it also scared me. My attorney advised me to protect myself. I followed that advice. It was not about spite. It was about survival." The judge nodded slowly. He said he needed time to consider everything. He ordered a 30-day psychiatric evaluation before making his final ruling. I would need to undergo multiple sessions with a court-appointed psychologist. The hearing was adjourned. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt defeated. Even if I won, eventually, the process was destroying me. Patrick helped me down the steps, but halfway down, my legs gave out. Everything went black. I woke up in an ambulance. Paramedics were working on me. Patrick's worried face appeared above me. "Stay with us, Ferdinand," someone said. My heart had given out again. The stress was killing me. Back in the ICU, wired up to machines again, I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare I could not escape. Dr. Hayes came in, angry this time. "You should never have left the hospital," she said. "You are not strong enough for this stress. If you do not rest, you will die. Do you understand me? You will die." I nodded weakly. But even as I lay there, I noticed something through the ICU window, another patient in the room across the hall. I could just see part of the bed, and there was a police officer sitting outside the door. A nurse came in to check my vitals. I asked her about the patient across the hall. She hesitated, then said it was Derek Paulson. He had been in a car accident 2 days ago while trying to flee the state. Broke his leg, fractured his collarbone, but he was alive. Under arrest and under guard, but alive. My mind raced. Derek was here, 20 feet away. The man who had destroyed my peace, manipulated my daughter, threatened my life, was right there. Patrick arrived an hour later with coffee. I told him about Derek. He looked through the window, confirmed it. We could see part of Derek's bed, his bandaged form, the handcuffs attaching him to the bed rail. That night, around midnight, an orderly came into my room. Young guy, maybe 25, with nervous energy. He handed me a folded piece of paper, then quickly left. I opened it. The message was written in neat handwriting. Drop everything, or I tell police you hired me to test your daughter's loyalty. I have recordings of our phone calls that can be edited. Your voice saying you wanted to teach her a lesson. You will look like a manipulative old man who staged everything. No one will believe you. You will lose the guardianship case. Your daughter will go to prison, and your reputation will be destroyed. Your choice. Drop all charges, or I burn everything down. Derek. My hands shook as I read it. Patrick came back from the cafeteria, saw my face, read the note. He was furious. He is bluffing, Patrick said. He has to be. But I was not sure. Derek had been planning this for months. Would he really have recordings? Could he fake them convincingly enough to create doubt? The legal system did not require certainty, just reasonable doubt. If Derek could make it look like I had orchestrated everything as some twisted test of Candace's loyalty, everything would collapse. The guardianship case would definitely succeed. I would look like an abusive father who manipulated his daughter into attempting fraud just to prove a point. Candace would be seen as my victim, and she would gain control over my life. Or worse, she would go to prison for fraud while I was labeled a monster. I did not sleep that night. Neither did Patrick. We sat in my ICU room, staring at that note, trying to figure out what to do. The next morning, Judith came to the hospital. We showed her Derek's message. She examined it carefully, took photos of it for evidence. Then she gave us her assessment. He might be bluffing about the recordings, she said. But we cannot be sure. Audio can be edited convincingly nowadays. Even if we could prove it was fake in a detailed forensic analysis, the damage would be done. The court of public opinion does not wait for forensic analysis. And judges are human. Once doubt is planted, it is hard to remove. So what do we do? Patrick asked. Judith leaned back in her chair. We have a few options. 1, we call his bluff and proceed with everything. Risk it. 2, we negotiate. See what he really wants. 3, we find evidence that proves he is lying before he can release anything. Over the next few days, I had to undergo the court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. The psychologist was Dr. Raymond Holt, a calm man in his 50s with kind eyes. I was prepared to dislike him, to see him as just another obstacle, but he surprised me. Our first session was in a quiet office near the hospital. He asked me to tell him about my life. Not about the legal case, not about Derek, just about me. So I told him about growing up in rural Pennsylvania, about joining the Postal Service at 22, about meeting Gloria at a church picnic when I was 25. I told him about our wedding, about buying our first house, about Candace being born when I was 32. He listened, without judgment, just taking notes. The second session, he asked about Gloria's death. I broke down telling him about those final 4 months, watching cancer eat away at the woman I loved, feeling helpless. He let me cry, did not rush me, just sat there in compassionate silence. The third session, he asked about my relationship with Candace. I told him the truth, all of it. The good years when she was young, the difficult teenage years, her marriage to Todd, and the painful divorce, her growing resentment after Gloria died, the comments about money, my decision to create the trust, and finally, Derek. Dr. Holt asked me directly, "Do you think your daughter is a bad person?" I thought about it for a long time. "No," I said finally. "I think she is a lost person. She lost her mother. She lost her marriage. She lost her way. She made terrible choices, but I do not think she is bad at her core. I think she is broken and desperate and made mistakes." "Do you love her?" "Yes," I said. "Even after everything, yes. I wish I did not sometimes. It would be easier, but I do." Dr. Holt nodded. made a note. "I think that tells me everything I need to know about your mental state," he said. Meanwhile, Patrick was doing his own investigation. He visited the impound lot where Derek's crashed car was being held. The police had already searched it and found nothing useful. But Patrick, who did computer work on the side for his construction business, noticed something. The car had a laptop in the trunk. The police had checked it, but it was clean, wiped. Patrick examined it more closely and realized the hard drive had been replaced recently. The original hard drive was missing. If Derek really had recordings or fabricated evidence, it would be on that original hard drive. Which meant it was hidden somewhere. Candace, desperate to help and make amends, remembered something. Derek had a storage unit. She had the key. He had given it to her weeks ago, told her to store wedding supplies there. She had never actually gone to the unit herself. Patrick, Candace, and Judith got a warrant to search the storage unit. The police were interested now because Derek was facing multiple charges. They opened the unit on a Thursday afternoon. What they found was staggering. The unit was full of evidence of Derek's operation. Boxes of fake IDs, forged documents for at least 8 other victims, detailed plans and timelines. There were files on elderly people across 3 states, including notes about their routines, their family situations, their vulnerabilities. 2 of the victims had died while Derek was supposedly caring for them. The circumstances looked suspicious now. But there was no hard drive with recordings. They searched every box, every folder. Nothing. However, they found something potentially more valuable: a journal. Derek had kept a handwritten journal, apparently for his own amusement. In it, he detailed his schemes with arrogant pride. There were entries about me, about how he planned to manipulate Candace, about creating fake evidence to use as insurance if he got caught. He wrote about his backup plan. Edited recordings that he could create if necessary using voice synthesis software, which was apparently getting very sophisticated. The key phrase was, "if necessary," and could create. He had not actually created fake recordings yet. He was bluffing. The threat in his note was empty. Patrick rushed the journal to the district attorney's office. The DA, a woman named Sharon Hughes, read it with growing anger. Derek was now facing potential murder charges in addition to fraud. The FBI was getting involved because he had operated across state lines. Judith took the journal to the judge in my guardianship case, filed an emergency motion to present new evidence. The judge reviewed it and made an immediate ruling. The guardianship petition was dismissed with prejudice. The evidence was clear that I had been the victim of an elaborate fraud scheme, not a paranoid old man imagining threats. Bethany Morse, the lawyer who filed the petition, came to the hospital that evening. She was not there in her official capacity. She looked terrified. She sat down and told me the truth. Derek had approached her 3 months ago, paid her $25,000 in cash to file the guardianship case no matter what happened. She had not known the full extent of his criminal operation. She thought it was just a family dispute with a difficult father. Now she realized she had been part of a fraud conspiracy. She offered to withdraw from the case entirely, to testify against Derek, to surrender her law license if necessary. She just wanted protection. She believed Derek was part of a larger fraud ring, and she was afraid of retaliation. I looked at this woman who had tried to take away my freedom, who had painted me as incompetent and paranoid. Part of me wanted to destroy her career, to demand the harshest punishment. But another part of me, the part that still heard Gloria's voice, felt something else: mercy. "I will not pursue action against you personally," I said. "But you need to cooperate fully with the authorities and make this right." She agreed, tears streaming down her face. She withdrew the guardianship petition officially and gave a full statement to the district attorney about Derek's payment and instructions. Dr. Holt delivered his psychiatric evaluation to the court. Ferdinand Miller is completely mentally competent, shows no signs of dementia or cognitive decline, and was clearly the victim of a sophisticated fraud scheme. His decisions regarding the family trust were rational and prudent given the circumstances. Recommend full dismissal of guardianship case. The judge dismissed everything. Officially, legally, I was free. Derek was indicted on 17 felony counts across multiple jurisdictions. He was facing decades in prison, but victory felt hollow. The stress had caused permanent damage to my heart. Dr. Hayes told me I would need long-term care. I could not live alone anymore. I needed help with daily activities, medication management, someone to drive me to appointments. I needed either a nursing facility or live-in help. Candace volunteered immediately. "Let me take care of you," she said. "Please, let me make this right." I was torn. Could I trust her? Should I forgive her? She had been manipulated, but she had also betrayed me, and now I would be dependent on her, vulnerable, in ways I never wanted to be. Patrick was skeptical. I love Candace, he said. She is my cousin. But this is a lot to ask after everything that happened. I thought about Gloria's deathbed promise. I thought about the journal entries where Derek described Candace as an easy mark, lonely and desperate, and perfect for manipulation. I thought about my daughter sitting in that courthouse in her wedding dress, abandoned and humiliated. Okay, I said finally. But we set boundaries, rules, and Patrick checks in regularly. Candace moved into my house 2 weeks later. The house that was still safely in the trust, that Derek had never actually been able to touch. The first few weeks were awkward. Candace cooked meals I barely touched. She organized my medications into daily pill boxes. She drove me to cardiac rehabilitation 3 times a week. She cleaned the house, did laundry, tried to make conversation. I watched her constantly, suspicious of every action. I started testing her. I would leave $20 on the kitchen counter, then check later to see if it was still there. It always was. I would leave my wallet visible, accessible. She never touched it. I would pretend to forget to lock the front door at night, seeing if she would sneak out or make phone calls. She did not. I knew these tests were unfair, that they showed I did not really trust her, but I could not help myself. Derek's betrayal, Candace's participation in the scheme, had damaged something fundamental in me. The ability to trust was broken. Patrick visited every Sunday for dinner. He noticed my paranoia, the way I watched Candace like a hawk. After one dinner, he pulled me aside. "You are torturing yourself," he said. "And you are torturing her. Either forgive her and trust her, or make other arrangements. But this halfway thing is not healthy for anyone." I knew he was right, but I did not know how to stop. The fear had taken root in my chest, right next to my damaged heart. Every time I started to relax, to believe Candace was genuinely trying to help, a little voice whispered, "Derek fooled you too. Everyone is lying. Everyone wants something." One afternoon, I overheard Candace on the phone in her room. I was supposed to be napping, but I had walked quietly down the hall, listened at her door. "Yes, I will have it by Friday," she said. "Do not worry. I am taking care of everything." Her tone was secretive, almost furtive. My heart sank. It was happening again. She was planning something, making arrangements behind my back. All the apologies, all the caregiving, it was an act. She was waiting for me to let my guard down. That Friday, I followed her when she left the house. She did not know I saw her leave. I called a taxi, something I had not done since the hospital, and told the driver to follow her car. My heart was pounding, the exertion making me dizzy, but I had to know. She drove to First National Bank, the same bank where Derek had tried to wire transfer my money. She was inside for 30 minutes. I sat in the taxi, each minute feeling like an hour, imagining what she was doing in there. Closing accounts? Transferring funds? Taking out loans in my name? She came out, saw me sitting there in the taxi, and her face went from confused to hurt to angry. She walked over, tapped on the window. I rolled it down. "You followed me," she said. It was not a question. "What were you doing in there?" I asked. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, showed me her banking app. She had opened a new savings account in her own name. The balance showed $4,300. "I got a job," she said. "Remote customer service for an insurance company. I have been working for 6 weeks, every evening after you go to bed. This is my savings. I am trying to get enough money to eventually move out, to get my own apartment, so you can have your house and your independence back. I was not going to tell you until I had enough saved, because I did not want you to feel guilty or think I was rushing to leave. But clearly, you thought I was stealing from you again." She walked back to her car, drove away. The taxi driver looked at me. "Where to now?" "Home," I said quietly. I sat in my living room for an hour before Candace came back. When she did, she was carrying groceries. She put them away without speaking to me. I watched her move around the kitchen. This woman who used to be my little girl, who I had pushed away with my suspicion and fear. "I am sorry," I said finally. She stopped, turned to look at me. Her eyes were red. "I do not blame you for not trusting me," she said. "I destroyed that trust. I know it will take time to rebuild, if it ever can be rebuilt. But it hurts, Dad. It really hurts to try so hard and have you assume the worst about everything I do." "I know," I said. "I am broken, Candace. What Derek did to us, it broke something in me. I do not know how to fix it." She came over, sat down next to me on the couch. Gloria's couch, where she and I had spent thousands of evenings watching television, reading, just being together. Me too, Candace said. He broke something in me too. But we are both still here. We both survived. Maybe we can help each other heal. We sat there in silence for a while. Then I told her something I had not told anyone. I told her about Gloria's final hours in the hospital, about the promise she made me make. Never give up on Candace. Your mother made me promise, I said, and I almost broke that promise. I almost pushed you away forever because I was scared. Candace started crying. I miss her so much, she said, every single day. She would know what to say to fix this. She always knew what to say. I took her hand. She would say, we are both idiots, I said. She would tell us to stop being stubborn and remember that we are family. She would make us sit down and talk until we worked it out. And she would probably make her terrible casserole that we both hated but pretended to like. Candace laughed through her tears. That tuna casserole with the crushed potato chips on top. It was awful. The worst, I agreed. But we ate it because we loved her. We sat there holding hands. Two broken people trying to figure out how to be a family again. It was the first real moment of peace I had felt in months. That evening, Patrick stopped by with news. Derek had been convicted. 14 of 17 counts, with sentencing in 3 weeks. He was looking at 45 to 60 years in federal prison. Given his age, he would likely die behind bars. The other victims were filing a civil lawsuit against everyone involved in Derek's operation, including trying to go after anyone who had helped him. That included Candace. Technically, even though she had been manipulated. She could lose everything again, Patrick said. They are claiming she should have known, that she was willfully blind to obvious red flags. It is not fair, but civil law is different from criminal law. I made a decision right there. I called Judith Brennan, asked her to represent Candace in the civil case. It would cost most of my remaining savings, but I did not care. Gloria would never forgive me if I let our daughter face this alone. The civil trial took place 6 weeks later. It was exhausting, dredging up all the pain again. But I testified on Candace's behalf. I told the jury about Derek's manipulation, about how sophisticated his operation was, about how even the police and FBI admitted he was one of the best con men they had ever seen. If professionals struggled to catch him, how could my grieving, lonely daughter have known? My testimony was powerful. I could see it in the jury's faces. They saw an old man defending his daughter, a father who had been hurt but chose forgiveness over vengeance. Candace was found not liable. The jury agreed she was a victim, not a co-conspirator. But the legal fees had wiped me out. My savings account, which had held $140,000 from Gloria's life insurance, was down to less than $12,000. My retirement income covered basic expenses, but there was no cushion left. No emergency fund, no safety net. If something went wrong, if I needed expensive medical care, I had nothing. Patrick offered to help, but his construction company was struggling. The economy had hit the building industry hard. He had laid off 3 employees and was barely making payroll. He could not afford to support me too. Candace felt terrible. This is my fault, she kept saying. All of it. If I had never met Derek, if I had been stronger, smarter, less selfish, I stopped her. We cannot change the past, I said. We can only move forward. But I did not know how to move forward. I was broke, dependent on my daughter, and terrified of the future. Everything I had worked for, everything Gloria and I had built together, was gone. Then I got a phone call from a lawyer named Howard Finch. He specialized in estate matters. He told me something I did not know. Gloria had a small life insurance policy from her teaching job, separate from the main policy I had already received. It had been caught up in probate for 3 years, due to administrative errors at the school district. Some paperwork had been filed incorrectly, and the district had changed insurance companies, and the whole thing had been a bureaucratic nightmare. But now it was resolved. The policy was paying out $89,000. I stared at the check when it arrived in the mail. $89,000. Not a fortune, but enough. Enough to rebuild a small safety net. Enough to not be terrified every moment. Gloria was still taking care of me, even from beyond the grave. I sat at the kitchen table holding that check, and I cried. Candace found me there, asked what was wrong. I showed her the check, told her about Gloria's policy. Candace sat down across from me, and she cried too. She never stopped looking out for us, Candace said, even when we did not deserve it. Especially then, I said. 6 months passed. Life settled into a new normal. I was healthier, physically at least. The cardiac rehabilitation worked. I could walk without the walker, just used a cane now. My heart was still damaged, but it was stable. Dr. Hayes said I had probably added years to my life by managing my stress and following the treatment plan. Candace was still living with me, but our relationship had transformed. She was not just my caregiver anymore. She was my daughter again. We had dinner together every night, talked about real things, not just medical appointments and medications. She enrolled in community college, taking accounting classes online. She wanted a real career, something stable. I used Gloria's insurance money wisely. We paid off my remaining medical debts. We rebuilt a modest emergency fund, and I insisted on helping Candace pay for her college classes. She protested, said I had already spent too much on her legal defense, but I told her this was different. This was an investment in her future, which is what parents do. Patrick's construction company recovered. He landed a major contract, building a new community center. Family dinners became a regular thing again, every other Sunday. We would cook together, tell stories, laugh. It felt like healing. I received a letter from Derek in prison. It sat on my kitchen table for 3 days before I decided what to do with it. Candace asked if she should throw it away. I said no, put it in the drawer. Maybe someday I would read it, maybe not. I had that choice now. I was not controlled by fear anymore. The family trust was restructured. With Judith's help, we added Candace as a beneficiary when I died, but with conditions. She had to complete her college degree and maintain employment for 3 consecutive years. It was not about control. It was about encouraging her growth, giving her goals to work toward. She understood and appreciated it. These were not punishments. They were guardrails to keep her on track. One Sunday afternoon, I drove to the cemetery. First time I had been able to drive since the surgery. Patrick had taken me through some practice sessions, made sure I was safe behind the wheel. It felt good to have that independence back. I sat by Gloria's grave, the simple granite marker with her name and dates and the inscription, "Beloved wife, mother, teacher." I told her everything that had happened. The betrayal, the fraud, the legal battles, the heart problems, the reconciliation with Candace. I apologized for almost breaking my promise to never give up on our daughter. I thanked her for the insurance policy, for thinking ahead, for always taking care of us even when I did not realize it. I told her that Candace was going to be okay, that we were going to be okay, that we had survived something terrible and come out the other side, damaged but not destroyed. I told her I loved her, that I missed her every single day, that the house felt empty without her. But I also told her I was not empty anymore. I had found my way back to our daughter, and that was because of her. Driving home, I thought about everything I had learned. Money really does make people crazy. It turns children against parents, tears families apart, brings out the absolute worst in everyone. I had watched it happen to my own family. Derek exploited that weakness, that greed and fear and resentment that money creates. But I learned something more important. Forgiveness is not about letting someone off the hook. It is about releasing yourself from the prison of anger. Candace hurt me deeply. She let a con man use her to try to destroy me. But she was lost, grieving her mother, vulnerable and desperate. We all make terrible mistakes when we are hurting. The question is not whether someone deserves forgiveness. The question is whether you can live with bitterness eating you alive. I almost did. I almost pushed away the only family I had left because I was terrified of being hurt again. I tested Candace, suspected her, refused to trust her. That was understandable given what had happened, but it was also wrong. Fear is a prison we build for ourselves. Gloria knew better than me. She always did. That insurance policy she left, it was not just about money. It was a message from beyond the grave. Love is the only investment that really matters. Take care of each other. Forgive each other. Be a family. Everything else, the house, the money, the legal victories, none of it means anything if you are alone. Derek is in prison now, and I pity him. He will spend the rest of his life behind bars, and he will die having never known real love, real family, or real peace. He thought he was smart, thought he could take everything from me. But he could not take what really mattered. I won my battles. All of them. I protected my assets. I survived his threats. I cleared my name. I helped my daughter avoid prison and civil liability. But the greatest victory was not any of those things. The greatest victory was learning to trust again, to forgive, to honor the promise I made to the woman I loved. That is worth more than any house or bank account. That is worth everything. I pulled into my driveway. Candace was sitting on the front porch, the porch where Gloria and I used to spend summer evenings watching the neighborhood. Candace had made coffee, was waiting for me with 2 cups. She waved. I waved back. I walked up the porch steps, careful with my cane, and sat down in the chair next to her. She handed me the coffee. We sat there together, father and daughter, watching the young couple across the street unload boxes from a moving truck, starting their new life together, full of hope and promise, with no idea what challenges might come. But that is life, is it not? We do not know what is coming. We cannot protect ourselves from every betrayal, every loss, every heartbreak. All we can do is hold on to what matters, forgive when we can, and keep choosing love over fear. I sipped my coffee. It was perfect, just how I liked it. Candace knew that now. She had learned so many things about me over these months of living together, caring for me. And I had learned things about her too. That she was stronger than I thought, that she could change, that she was worth fighting for. Gloria would be proud of us. I know she would. We survived. We healed. We became a family again. And that, more than anything else, is what matters. I want to ask you something. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between holding on to anger or choosing forgiveness? Maybe someone in your family betrayed your trust, or you felt abandoned when you needed help the most. It is not easy to let go of that hurt, but holding on to it only hurts you in the end. What do you think? Could you forgive someone who tried to take everything from you? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories and perspectives. If this story touched your heart, or made you think about your own family relationships, please hit that like button. It helps others find these stories, and maybe find some comfort or wisdom in them. And if you want to hear more stories about resilience, forgiveness, and the complicated relationships we navigate in life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today, someone who is struggling with family issues or trying to decide whether forgiveness is possible. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was not easy to hear at times. Life gets messy and painful, but we survive, we heal, we find our way back to what matters. I hope you find your way too, whatever battles you are fighting. Take care of yourselves and the people you love. Life is short, and in the end, family and forgiveness are all that really matter. Until next time.